I've never seen any turtles swim away that fast. I'm like, that's strange. It's letting me get this close to it and have a personal connection with it. Now it just swims away like I've never seen any turtle swim away before. It bites me lower and then it shakes and then it yanks my head back and then that's when I know it was the shark. And then I started screaming for help. I felt every single shark tooth go into my leg. So I started screaming right after the first bite and right once it yanked my head back and I saw it, I just started screaming for help. That's all I could think of.
I think the only person in more pain than when a child struggles is their parent.
First thoughts out of my mind are we're 9 miles offshore and he's actively bleeding to death. So I'm now immediately in shock over the reality that he's about to breathe his last breath. The first words out of his mouth when he hears his daddy scream, "Daddy, it's okay. Jesus is going to save me."
Jameson Reeder and Jameson Jr. Reeder, welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary.
Thank you.
We're excited to be with you, John. Thank you, man.
Well, man, I feel like we are off to the races today. This is going to be a wild, inspirational, emotional, and powerful journey forward together. What originally attracted me to both of you and to your book was actually not the shark attack. It was not what Jameson Jr. went through. It was not even the faith that both of you showed and Mary showed and your family showed in the community. The first thing that really drew me in was how normal you are.
Mm.
It wasn't the attack that was worthy. It was the ordinariness of it all. And then the moment that changes it all afterwards. So before that day, let's just talk about growing up. What was life like before the attack?
Well, we absolutely have just loved the ocean, grown up around it our whole lives. And my wife and I, and Jameson Jr. was also born and raised on the ocean. And he and his two younger siblings at the time were also born in Fort Lauderdale, where we lived before relocating to Charlotte, North Carolina, where we live now. And we've had two of our children born here. So we love the ocean, growing up around the ocean, and we both love baseball. This kid's a natural athlete.
You like baseball, you like the ocean, you like your siblings most of the time. And then mom and dad rope you into this trip. You leave Charlotte, North Carolina, you go way down to the Florida Keys, you get on a little boat. It's August 13th, 2022. Is that the date?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, dad, tell me what the plan is for the day, man. You're on vacation with these four little kids. How old are they?
So he was 10, Noah was 7, Eliana was 5, and Nehemiah was 3. And we were just planning on being out at Reef, one of the most dove reefs in the state of Florida. It's 9 miles offshore, so we kind of needed to wait for really good conditions. So the wind was just laid down, the waves were just flat, and we could get out there on that perfect day. It was a Saturday, and so one of the last weekends before school was starting. So it was actually, even though it's 9 miles offshore, it was packed out there.
Is that right?
Kind of describe it as going to your favorite shopping mall on Black Friday, where you just looping around the parking lot waiting for an available space to become open. And that's what we were doing. You can't drop anchor out there. So we were waiting for a mooring ball to become available, another boat to leave. And so we finally found one. There's kind of two main sides. It's a long, narrow reef. And we were on the shallow side, only 8 feet deep. And we had just been talking about as a family the beauty of the reef, what we were going to see. And we had spoken about the very real possibility of seeing sharks. And what we do when we see a shark, we're calm and we go from horizontal to vertical in the water column to get big and face them. You know, they hate eye contact, and 99.99999% of the time they're not interested in us. He and I had already actually seen some sharks together before that dive. And so he was pretty excited about the reality of all that we were going to see, even the possibility of a shark. So we were doing our safety talk, and then we all dive in, and we're just having one of the best days. It was just beautiful, kind of a Chamber of Commerce day, as they say.
So everything is perfect. What could go wrong?
Right.
You, my understanding is you have some time in the water together as a family with the four kids. Then you all start getting thirsty and hungry. So you hop back into the boat. Your sandwiches and your wife's sandwiches are not perfect because you forgot the meat because you're in such a rush to get out the door that day. But eventually,
It's actually everybody.
Is that everybody?
Everyone, yeah.
So everybody's got these lame sandwiches, but it's so pretty outside that it's working out just fine. And
Yeah.
then Junior, you
So,
recognize, man, I want to get back in the water.
Hmm.
What? Tell me about that.
so after lunch, I saw a turtle surface the boat, and I asked my dad if I could go follow it with the GoPro, and he was like, "Yeah." And so he jumps in with my little brother Nehemiah, and so I jump in, and I'm following that turtle, and he keeps slowing down for me so I could get close to him, and I was very, very close to him. I've gone close to almost every single sea creature in the ocean except for a turtle, so that was big.
And I'm assuming when you say that you were tracking the sea turtle and it was a goal of yours, that you remember all this. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Vividly.
So
Yeah.
then take me forward, man, because I know this more from your father's perspective than from yours. What happens next?
Once the turtle lets me get close to it, I swim with it for a while, and then it swims away like I've never seen any turtle swim away that fast. And so I'm like, that's strange. It's letting me get this close to it and have a personal connection with it. Now it just swims away like I've never seen any turtle swim away before. So
Yes.
I turn back to the boat and the shark attacks me. It bites me on my leg, it lets go, it bites me lower, and then it shakes, and then it yanks my head back, and then that's when I know it was the shark. And then I started screaming for help.
Jameson, did you have any idea that it was a shark? Did you see it? Did you see it coming?
So I did not see it coming. When it started shaking, it yanked my head back, and then that's when I saw the shark.
Mm. What
So,
was your first thought? When you see this shark and it's shaking you, you don't even feel pain yet because it's
oh
immediate.
yes, yes I do. Yes I do. Usually
You,
the worse the attack, the more in shock you should be. But I was every single I felt every single shark tooth go into my leg. So I started screaming right after the first bite, and right once it yanked my head back and I saw it, I just started screaming for help. That's all I could think of.
now I'm going to switch over to your dad because he didn't see the shark. He didn't see anything that happened to you, but the first thing that caught his attention was that sound of you screaming.
Yeah.
So, Dad, you're with a 3-year-old man. You're just doing your own thing by the boat, and then you hear this scream.
Yeah. So when we got in, I saw him having that amazing encounter with the turtle and didn't want my 3-year-old, who was still learning how to swim and kind of doing what 3-year-olds do on the surface. I don't want him to spook the turtle interaction Jameson was having. As you heard, he was excited about having this kind of interaction. Now that he was having it, man, I didn't want anything to spoil that. So I start to try to help Nehemiah, my 3-year-old, stay kind of focused so that Jameson can really enjoy that encounter. So I find a beautiful queen conch. It's only about 8 feet deep of water down on the seafloor. So I pointed to him and said, "Watch me." And he's got his little goggles on. He's looking down. And as I dive down to get that queen conch, and as I surface with it to show him, that's when I hear the screaming. First from Jameson, just right off the side of the boat, and then from my wife on the boat. And first thought is, man, just close that short gap between me and him. My son needs me.
Yeah.
We have no clue it's a shark. Don't see the shark still. But then I go, well, my 3-year-old is just going to drift off in the current to the Bahamas if I don't grab him and get him onto the back of the boat. And then a proper rescue is to get a boat to someone. Again, not knowing anything, I'm thinking, man, there's already been some jellyfish that have kind of done some minor stings even on me. Could have just been a really bad sting. We don't know. So crank the engine, release the bow line, and within seconds, we're to him. And as we're looking at him, he's white and he's pale and he's sitting on the pool noodle and he's lifting up his hand, dad, mom, reaching out for help. And now we're getting really shallow up against the coral. And I said, Mary, you got to jump in. I got to hold the boat in place so the wind and current doesn't wash us into the
Yes.
shallows. And so she jumps in and brings him to the back of the boat. I go to the dive platform, pull him in, and for the first time, as we lift him out of the water, we see from below his knee all the way down to his foot, nothing but bone.
Mm.
The outer bone, the fibula is gone. The tibia has shark teeth marks all over it. And literally, John, no flesh from below the knee to his ankle and then just the foot. It was devastating.
It's hard to hear that. And I've prepared for this, so I'm ready for it. And it is hard to hear that. I can't imagine Jameson Jr. feeling that, being that. And dad, I think the only person in more pain than when a child struggles is their parent. So here you are in this boat, captaining this thing so you don't go farther into the drifting and ultimately mooring yourself, while at the same time recognizing your wife's in the water. There's a shark somewhere in the water. Your boy's been bit by a shark, and the majority of his leg on one side is missing. What's going through your mind?
First thoughts out of my mind are we're 9 miles offshore and he's actively bleeding to death. So I'm now immediately in shock over the reality that he's he's about to breathe his last breath. And I'm holding him in my arms. And so I scream out, looking at his big blue eyes, 10 years old, just handsome, incredible young man. I scream no in absolute denial and horror of the reality. And the first words out of his mouth when he hears his daddy scream, "Daddy, it's okay. Jesus is going to save me." And John, I mean, to this day, to think about the deep faith that he possessed in that moment, to believe that his God and our God is greater than whatever we are facing. I mean, that brought me out of shock and into a reality of let's go, let's get to work. That was the moment, man, that changed. It was a pivot. That moment was a hinge that just, man, we began to act after that.
So Junior is now leading you both in faith and in this calm peace that somehow he's experiencing in the back of the boat, in total shambles back there, bleeding out. And you hinted at this, but I'd like you to go into a little bit more detail. You're in a little boat, man. You're 9 miles away from the tip of land, but that's not even getting you farther in. That's not getting you life flighted or anything else. You need help. What begins to happen around you?
We need immediate help. And my first thought is, it took us 40 minutes to get out here. Our closest help is on the other side of the reef where the other boats were. There were dozens of boats over there. And so, like I said, it's a long, narrow reef. So to go around one end or the other to get to those boats would have taken quite a while. So I'm thinking I got to get to them rather than running inshore. And so I just said, all right, let me just visibly look. I'm not even looking at a depth finder at this point. I'm looking at the coral and I'm going, all right, there looks to be a little narrow passage. Let me just try to run the boat right through there. And what ended up happening, John, is because we did that, no one ever runs the boat over the reef out there. That got the attention of every boat on the reef and immediately made them realize there's something wrong. And so that caused several people to start dialing 911 almost before they knew what would happen because now they're thinking our boat's about to sink because we've just breached the boat. The hull is probably punctured. They're probably taking on water. We don't know who's on that boat, but that boat is in an SOS situation. So as the boat makes it over the reef, we get to the other side, we start going to the nearest boat to us. It ends up being, as we look back through our pictures and talk to our different friends who we now have from that moment, it ends up being the fastest boat on the reef that day. Our boat had a single 300 horsepower engine. That boat had triple 350 horsepower engine, over 1,000 horsepower to our 300
All
horsepower.
right.
And we, of course, start screaming, communicating what's happening. Everyone gets on 911. The other boats are starting to hear nearby. Again, they're all moored at their own different spots. And so this boat, as we're getting there, we're on the phone with 911 and they're saying, hey, at this location, there will be a rescue available waiting if you can get in. So I said to that captain, his name's Todd. I said, Todd, I don't know him from anybody. Do you know where that marina is? Because it's a private marina. He said, I know right where it is. I said, Todd, you've got the faster boat. We can't sit here and wait. They were talking about dispatching Coast Guard and this, that, and the other on the phone. And I just said, we can't wait, man. You have the faster boat. You have to run them in because you know where to go. And so I kissed him on the forehead, transferred him and my wife. And while this is happening, someone else is now getting onto our boat. And I go, who are you? And she goes, I'm a nurse. How can I help? And very few people hear shark attack, shark bite, which again, there's a big difference between an attack and a bite. A bite is a little nibble, oh, wrong thing, let go. An attack is
Yeah.
two bites, head shake, a vicious, I'm eating this thing, which is exactly what happened, was an attack. And very few people hear that and just jump in the water, right? So this brave woman, Jennifer, who happens to be on the boat next to the boat we went to, is a nurse, swims over with her medical marine safety bag. And again, she couldn't do anything, but it was just because there's no hospital even in the lower keys that could do anything, which is why we end up having to get airlifted to Miami. But it was just a comforting reality that God had people positioned all across the reef that day, from the fast boat to the nurse. And as all this is happening, I kiss him on the forehead, transfer him to Todd, and I sense in my spirit from the Lord, not an audible voice, these words, I'll hold him until you get there. And I just thought that that meant that's it. He's going to go to heaven. God's going to hold him eternally. His soul is secure. Because I know at the young age of 6, Jameson prayed to receive Christ with me and my wife on our bed one evening. And so I knew, man, he'd be with the Lord because what we were seeing, the reality of what we were seeing, Jennifer, the nurse, even told us, of course, she didn't tell us then, but she said, there's no way this kid's going to live, man.
Right.
It's impossible. But I knew to give him a fighting chance, got to get him to that boat, got to let them run him in. And they closed 9 miles on that boat in 10 minutes. Took us nearly 40 minutes, 35 to 40 minutes. They closed in 10 minutes.
Jameson, let's talk about your speedboat. So dad takes you out on his average boat, man. Dad doesn't invest in the big dog. All of a sudden, though, now you are on this speedboat hauling back toward the marina. And my understanding is not only are you in the back of the boat bleeding out, but you had the wherewithal to be at peace and
Mm.
singing. Do you remember that?
Sure I do. I'm just gonna say this real quick. I was not fully at peace. Remember, we're flying in to shore.
Yeah.
My mom, the nurse, and me, they're trying to hold me down because I keep flying. I can feel my
Yeah. The
just
boat's going up and down. So you're talking about the boat is flying up and down on the waves and your little body and your little limb that's just barely hanging on and you're bleeding out and you're rocking up and down and the nurse is trying to hold you and keep you from bleeding out and your mom is trying to hold you down.
I thought I saw this man on fire, and then after a bit, it cleared up to be Jesus. Jesus was just giving me this sense of peace, and that led me to start singing because I knew if I didn't entertain myself or do something, I would have died.
What were you singing?
I was singing a song that I learned on the piano, Here I Am to Worship.
Do you remember any of it?
Yes, sir, I do.
Tell me, sing it if you don't mind. Either say it or sing it. And I have the words right in front of me, so I know this song, but some of our listeners may not. What are some of those sentences, some of the words from that song?
You want to sing it
Here
together?
I am to worship.
Here
Here
I
I
am
am
to
to
bow
bow
down.
down. Here I am to say that
You're
you're
my
my
God.
God.
Yeah.
You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. So, man, you're bleeding out and you're dying. You're pale. The nurse who knows that you're going to die, but she's going to fight for you anyway. And you have this sense of hope and peace.
Mm.
Your mom, Mary, is with you the entire time. Do you remember what it was like when she got to the marina? Was there an ambulance there, or what was that like?
Once we got there, they carried me to the stretcher and then they led me to the ambulance. And once I got to the ambulance, weren't they saying that you can't come in at first? What they
Mom,
saying? Mom.
they were just wondering, mom wanted to come, of course she did. But yeah, they were trying to sort out who could get on. Was there enough
Right.
space, this, that, and the other? Of course, mom.
Wait.
I'm not staying here. I'm going with my boy. And so you get on the stretcher. I mean, they were efficient, John. Waiting. Rescue was there. Got on the boat, got him off the boat, put him right on the stretcher, got him right into the back of the unit, and then eventually start heading towards where the airlift, the helicopter would be.
Dad, you're at this coral reef. You have blood in the back of your boat. It's your son's. Two passengers you brought out that morning are no longer with you. Your wife is gone. because she took off on the speedboat and your son is dying. Now what?
Yeah, man, that's exactly right. I'm not thinking the boat's sinking like everybody else because I'm not taking on water. So when they leave, when I transfer him and I'm in my mind not sensing the peace that he describes starts to feel and then my wife as she begins to Mary describes it once she hits land, she had peace that he was going to make it. So I don't know any of that. I'm still 9 miles offshore. And I've got my other three on the boat, Noah, Eliana, and Nehemiah. They're in the up on the bow. We had kind of closed a little partition just to try to shield them a little bit. My son Noah, he's huddled with his siblings. They're all crying, obviously. And I can't bring myself to look to the back of the boat thinking I'm just going to see a bunch of my son's, you know, maybe a piece of his leg, maybe something else fell off that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got the back of
Celebration.
the boat. I can't look at it. The front of the boat, my kids are crying. So I just drive over to the boat Jennifer, the nurse, jumped off of. And they were just kind of far enough away that they couldn't quite understand what was happening other than to see one of their passengers get on a boat and leave. And what's happening?
Right.
I tell them what's going on. I'm like, hey, we got to get in. And they're like, is your boat okay? I'm like, I think so. Everything looks fine. And so we go in together, me and that other boat. And as we go in, I start calling. We're ripping and roaring as fast as we can go. I start calling family. And eventually I get a hold of my brother Josh in Hawaii. And I'm the oldest of three boys, and we all love the ocean. And he's a big surfer. And I'm telling him Jameson was attacked by a shark. He thinks I'm kidding. And then he hears the wide open engine and hears me crying. And then he just bursts into tears. And he realizes, the gravity, man,
Yeah.
of what's happening. And so then I tell him, man, you got to call mom and dad. You got to call our other brother Justin and get everybody praying. Like his leg is gone, man. I don't think he's gonna make it. As we're running in, I think I'm gonna get a call any second from my wife saying he's dead. He just died. So I keep trying to call her. Um, she's not answering, and rightfully so. So I just keep waiting for the worst. We get inshore, and our captain, Dodd Bolger, Florida Fish Wildlife Commission, comes on board and he's like, man, you got an incredible son. I'm like, what? He goes, what a young man. I'm like, he's talking to me and this, that, and the other. I'm like, are we talking about the same kid?
Right.
And I'm just thinking like this guy's crazy. Then one of the other medics with the fire department points and he's on the radio and he goes, hey, that's your son's airlift landing right over there. So they had already run him over across the bridges to an area where the airlift would land. And so we see the airlift landing and they're communicating the best they can to me. And I'm just still trying to get in touch with my wife. And I finally do. And she's like, honey, he's doing great. And I can't, I mean, I almost can't believe it. Then they get on the airlift, and I'm talking to other kids, trying to comfort them, and we're going through all the stuff we have to go through with sheriff and Florida Fish Wildlife and paramedics and fire and all the people, and then the people who drove them in on their boat and the other boat we went in with, and the nurse talking to her, and so then we eventually head back, take our boat, which isn't our boat, it's our friend's boat who was letting us stay at their house and use their boat. We get back to the house we're staying at. Another 30-minute boat ride from the dock.
And I'm gonna just step in. Like
Yeah.
this whole thing is just so messy. I know all tragedy is shocking, but typically when tragedy strikes, you're close to neighbors, close to family, close to knowing exactly where the nearest McDonald's is, Starbucks is, and hospital is, and you're nowhere near any of this. And you really have no idea where your son is going, where your wife is. I don't think she even has a pair of shoes or a cover up with her. She's in a swimsuit, shoeless, in a helicopter. Like it's all a mess. And you have blood on your hands. You've got a dying son on a helicopter, and you've got three kids under the age of 7 going to a vacation home. Like you've lived it and you're through it, but in the midst of it, I can't imagine.
No, man. Yeah, we just there's so many pieces as you just wonderfully described that are so out of place, and you're just trying to get your arms around who's where are you going, what's happening, how is he? Then trying to figure out what I can and can't share with my youngest kids who are asking a ton of questions, thinking, I'm probably not going to see my brother again.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, man, Captain Bulger and Lieutenant John Heddle, Florida Fish Wildlife Commission, one who drove the boat, the other who met us there, said, hey, man, take the kids up to the house. Let us put the boat on the lift, clean the blood up. You don't need to do that, Dad. You don't need to be dealing with that. And like I said before, everybody on the reef that day thought that boat was sinking. Lift it up. There's not a scratch on the boat. I mean, the subtitle of the book is The Miraculous True Story of a Little Boy with Big Faith. And John, if we took time to just go through every single miracle, like the one I just described, it would be here a long time. But bottom line, as that happens, I'm eventually getting a call that says we've rushed him into immediate life-saving surgery. A team of about 15 nurses and doctors receive him at the airlift and take him right in. They have to give him blood on the airlift. This is August 2022. So the
Yeah.
medical industry was still kind of in this COVID protocol. So they're not carrying blood because of COVID until that week. That week, the airlift just started carrying blood. Of course, he needs it. But when they get him to Miami and they go into surgery, that's when they call me, and I'm back at the house now trying to figure out what to do. I'm still filling out reports and stuff with FWC and trying to talk to my wife, trying to take calls from my parents who are getting on an emergency flight to fly from North Carolina to South Florida. Again, like you said, trying to put all the pieces together. And then they say, do we have your permission to amputate your son's leg? And I'm like, I mean, let me get to the hospital.
Right.
Let me see him. Then we'll talk. And they're like, no, you got like 2 minutes. And we're really not asking. We're really just kind of telling you this is what has to happen. So I immediately call a couple of friends who are doctors to just
Yeah.
their opinion as best you can. And our friend Dr. Daniel Chan, he said some oddly comforting words in that moment. He said to me, hey, I can't imagine
Yeah.
dad to dad having to make this decision. Don't worry. The shark has made the decision for you. You're off the hook, Dad. You're not having to make this decision from a distance. It's okay.
It was done for you.
Yeah.
I told you before we recorded, like the similarities in our stories. Normal family, foundation of faith, siblings who loved each other and fought with each other, all that stuff, man. So there's so many similarities, but one of them that I did not share with you is the hardest thing my dad said he ever did in his entire life was to sign a form that gave the doctors permission to amputate his son's fingers.
Mm.
And he recognized while he was doing it that it was the right thing to save a life, but he also recognized, and it might eventually take it. If a
Mm.
child who identified as an athlete, a kid who was able to write and hold a baseball and hold a fishing rod and hold a child's hand and hold a parent's hand, eventually might have that stolen from him, what kind of life would he have?
Mm.
So dad wrestled with this. I'm sure you wrestled with this even after signing. And Junior, son, my friend, I'm sure you wrestled with this mightily when you woke up. So we're going to speed it up just a little bit. You come out of surgery. I know you're sick for a while. You're out of sorts for a while. You're in and out of consciousness for a while. You've got breathing tubes and all this other stuff in you for a while. But eventually, you recognize the leg that I went swimming with on August 13th is no longer on my body.
Mm.
You're 10. What are you thinking?
Do you know the way that they explained to me that I lost my leg?
Tell me.
I said that Mommy, I can't feel my toes, but maybe I'll feel them tomorrow. And then I
Yeah.
went to sleep. And then I woke up after from all these nurses going back and forth who's going to tell Jameson that he lost his leg. My mom ended up telling me, do you know what happened to Bethany Hamilton? Do you know who that is?
So Bethany is my friend, and I love her. We've had her on our podcast.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, I knew what happened to my leg after that. And I just felt I was tired, first of all. So I was like, all right, sad I know I'll be able to get through this. I'm gonna go back to sleep, and that's it.
And John, we just watched how many days ago, James? Soul Surfer before
Oh
that,
my.
5, 6,
5 or 6 days before the attack. And we love
Dude,
Bethany and
4.
I
yeah.
mean, a couple wild coincidences going on in the room right now. Number one, Bethany is my friend. We've had her on our podcast and she cranked.
Mm.
Secondly, there's a film coming out about our life called Soul on Fire. And the director of it is a guy named Sean McNamara who directed Bethany's movie about her losing her arm. And I was with Sean just yesterday. Sean's a great man. Bethany's great. These stories are great. And the reason why he does what he does, whether it's around a burned child, a woman who's out surfing, or maybe one day you guys, is he likes to share stories of tragedy that have been redeemed
Mm.
in a marketplace that only focuses on how bad and corrupt and broken and divided the world is. If you pay attention, if you got to really pay attention, but if you pay attention, you see whispers of angels all around us.
Mm.
You see people who own boats that are saying, come aboard. You can bleed out on this boat with us. We'll get you in quicker, though. You see a nurse who jumps into a shark infested water with a bag to say, I'm here to help. I'm here to render aid. There are angels among us. And the world is so convicted by what's bad that we don't see evidence of it. So Sean does this work. Bethany does this work. I'm trying to do this work. And Jameson, you're already doing this work, man. You're only 11 or 12 or 13, whatever you are now, but you're already doing this work. So you find out your leg is missing. What's your first thought?
Okay.
Uh, okay, I'm glad I'm alive, and I'm glad I can use this story to share the gospel with other people, and I love watching people being brought to the Lord because of my story.
Before the attack, John, Jameson just has this heart long
I
before
know.
the attack. A lot of people think, oh man, maybe after the attack. No, this is the way he was before the attack. Exactly what he just said. He just wants their soul to be saved, man. He just has that deep burden in his heart. And as his dad, I'm proud of that. And I love that. He was sharing his faith with a friend. And that friend kind of said, hey, I kind of not interested. And that kind of hurt him. And so he's explaining that to me and my wife, and we're kind of going, hey man, beautiful, love it. But let's just build the relationship
Right.
and keep the relationship, and this will come. And a phrase we use in our house all the time is different from the world to make a difference in the world. And as we just are light around people mired in challenge and darkness and hurt, maybe we can film a lifeline if we build that bridge to hope and healing. And so as we then start talking to him about losing his leg, he comes to this pretty wild conclusion on his own early. Now, Dad, I don't have to wait for permission to share the gospel. I have this immediate opportunity because now nobody, is going to go, wait a minute, I'm not interested. They're going to go, how in the world did someone and something save you? Who is it? And so he's kind of had this wild and beautiful perspective like that from the beginning, man.
Mm. And in addition to that desire for people's faith lives, he desires to comfort and give away the wristbands and give away the gifts. And Jameson Jr., I'm sure a reflection of mom and dad as well, but Jameson Jr. loves serving and uplifting others. And you're hearing that throughout this podcast. So, Jameson Jr., why was it important for you to go back in the water?
Because I wanted to go back in the water and face my fear because I didn't want the hospital or the shark attack to be my greatest fear.
Whew. So, Dad, when Boy Wonder tells you that he wants to go not only back in the water, like a pool or a lake or even an ocean, but specifically back to that place, what do you think?
So I just left the hospital. It was in the evening, at 9 o'clock maybe, and I get a call from my dad. I'm like, "Hey, Dad's everything okay?" I just, he's by Junior's side, and my mom and my wife are with him. And Jameson is whispering, he goes, "Dad, no, it's me. I took Saba's phone and called you." I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" He goes, "I'm hiding under the sheets, and I don't want anybody to hear me, and I want to ask you a question." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Dad, will you put a plan together so that we can return to the reef?" And of course, I'm startled. And I just responded, "One day we'll return, man. One day we'll go back." And he says, "No, not one day, but as soon as we get clearance from the doctors, since we're allowed to, will you help get us back to the reef? And I'm like, why in the world do you want to go right back there where the shark just about took your life, man? And I say, let's figure it out. So the doctors clear us exactly 10 weeks after the shark attack, and that's when we return to the reef, jump back in the same waters where his life was almost taken.
How did that feel to jump in that water, Jameson Jr.?
So right before I jumped in, I've been thinking I've been so excited to jump back into the water, and then I feel the sense of fear. And my dad says, "Well, we don't have to go in. You've come this far." And I'm like, "No, Dad, we want to face my fear." And so I jump in, and for the split 2 seconds that I was underwater after once I jumped in, just the environment, the sky, the seaweed, the coral, the temperature of the water, just everything, all that reminded me of the shark attack.
But
And it was like a flashback of the shark attack. And then once I popped up, I swam with my friends and my family, and I just had a great time. My parents actually had to pull me out of the water because I didn't want to get out.
True story.
pull him out of the water again. This time, no blood, no crying, except for the fact he had to leave what he was wanting to be doing. That's pretty awesome. I, Unbelievably, in a story filled with miracles, one of the more surprising things is he was wearing a GoPro tracking the turtle.
Yeah,
Did you ever find the GoPro?
we did. He was holding it on like a selfie stick, and so he dropped it. So we're thinking, of course, nothing about that. It's the last of our concern. But when I eventually get to the hospital and we know he's alive and we're sorting through the medical decisions we have to make, it comes to my mind. I'm like, man, I was actually on the phone with one of my best friends, Grant, and I was just lamenting to him, Grant, I don't know if we actually caught the shark attack on there. And he goes, dude, I was just talking with Zach Spurlock. He's at Lukey Reef right now. Let's send him the coordinates and let's see if maybe he can find it. And so 2 days after the attack, Zach is searching the area, and it's like finding a needle in a haystack because, of course, who knows what the current's done with it. But the fact that it was on a selfie stick makes it
Yeah.
just a little bit more visible because it's a small camera, probably about the size of your fist. And on his like last pass, as he's searching, he finds it, calls me right away from the boat and FaceTimes me, actually shows it to me. I'm amazed. And so yeah, we that is another incredible part of the story of finding that, and then not just finding it, but knowing that the footage that we have is incredible of him, Jameson and the turtle, and him reacting, talking, wow, did you see that? It's amazing. Him popping up and, kind of talking to his audience, so to speak. And he is having the greatest day of his life. And then he goes back down, and 7 seconds after he pops up to talk, this massive bull shark comes rushing in. She's sitting out on the edge of visibility. We actually have about 18 frames. She just looks like really a shadow, but then by the time we kind of enhance and zoom in and figure out where she is, you got 18 frames of this 9 foot, 400 plus pound bull shark as he then turns the water, not seeing anything,
18
turns the
frames.
camera, and then she's on him.
You say that in a way that seems to almost celebrate the fact that you were able to capture that moment, not
Mm.
just the moments of joy leading up to it, but the moment of terror and tragedy caused by it. Talk about that.
Well, it didn't like show my leg like all the traumatic stuff.
A burst of blood, a bunch of bubbles. Again, it's not graphic,
Yeah,
but
but
what
it's illustrative of what happened. And I guess the reason I'm asking is, in so many regards, this story that the whole world would hate to have happened to them, and you do too, you now celebrate somehow because you recognize it's being redeemed for good. Even
Mhm.
that moment of tragedy, a 9 foot, 400 pound bull shark bull rushing your son at 40 miles per hour, or whatever they swim at, somehow God used that.
It's so true what you say. The story that you have lived, the story that Bethany has lived of from tragedy to triumph, from pain to purpose, from hurting to hope and healing. I mean, all of that is told most vividly in a story with a little boy and a big bull shark. It's a David and Goliath story.
Right.
It's not the size of the shark that counts. It's the strength of your Savior that matters. Do you have a Savior mighty enough to save you from the sharks in your life? Because every story has a shark in it. The question is, will you face that shark with faith and move forward to find freedom, or will you live in fear of the
Right.
sharks because you don't have a Savior who's mightier than the sharks?
So tell me, Jameson Jr., what was it like to finally get home? You've been on vacation, you've been on a boat, you've been on a helicopter, you've been in an ambulance, you've been in a hospital bed and in and out of surgeries, and now you're home. What was it like to come home?
Hundreds of neighborhood families greeted me at the door after once we came back in. Firefighters, police led me to my house, and it was very comforting to see my friends and be home again.
Mm.
Huge welcome home party, man. It was unexpected. We had no idea. Surprised. We're holding up signs like multiple streets away. Welcome home. We're so proud of you. Local media was here. It was unbelievably
Pretty awesome.
special. We were blown away. It was about 5 days before Christmas too. So they decorated the outside of our house with lights, stuff we normally would have done, but they just did for us. It was just the power of community and neighbors and deep relationships.
We're going to move to the end of our conversation here in a moment. I wish it was just the beginning. For those who want to learn more, I strongly encourage you to check out the book Rescue at the Reef. It's the miraculous true story of a little boy with big faith. I read it on a flight, and then as soon as I got into my hotel room, I finished it because it blew me away. It was just so raw. It was awesome in the most beautiful sense of the word. But here's my question to you, Dad, as we get ready to wrap. You heard very clearly in your mind, and maybe even more so than your mind, your heart, your soul, God speak to you. I will hold him in my arms until you get there. And you assumed that meant, okay, so in 40 years, when I check out, I'll get to see my son again. So when you first heard those words, for many folks who are listening to our conversation, the prayer of recovery they haven't received.
Mm.
The speedboat with 1,000 horsepower wasn't next to them. The nurse, 2 boats away, didn't jump in the water to begin rescuing this child in the back of a boat. The helicopter didn't land on time. The blood transfusion didn't take. Life did not go the way we had hoped and prayed. So for those of us who feel as if the very prayers we lift up have not yet been heard or have been completely ignored, what's your encouragement to them?
That's hard, man. No one knows that feeling more than that person. So I don't want to pretend to know anything, to have walked a mile in their shoes. But what I do know to be true is that everything that we go through, God can redeem everything. And I would encourage people who are in the middle of hurt. The one thing that's true of all 8 billion people on the planet is hurt. None of us are shaded and shadowed from hurt. And so therefore we all search for help. And often our search for help yields something that I call hype, an artificial form of help that the world holds out. And our greatest desire for this story, the message in this book, is it's a story of hope and healing.
So, men, Jamesons, we are near the end of our ride. We're approaching the marina. We have 7 questions that tether all of our questions, all of our guests together. They're called the Live Inspired 7. I'll go back and forth between you men as we move toward the final question. I'll start with Junior first. Junior, what's the most impactful or the best book you've ever read?
The Bible, Bible for sure.
And then that's a big book, man. There's a lot of pages in there and a lot of little baby books within it. Is there a specific book within the Bible that you like even more than the others?
Probably Psalms, because there's a lot of wisdom in there.
Mm.
It's awesome, man. Dad, what's one positive characteristic you possessed as a little boy that you wish you exhibited as brilliantly today?
I think what he is demonstrating, that childlike faith. I want to always believe and always see that my God is greater and bigger than any shark that I face.
Son, if your house caught fire, and you have a chance to run in. Your family's out, animals are out, everything's out, but you get to run in and get one thing, one item. What's that one thing you would come running back outside with?
Some other prosthetic gear. Because those things are very important. Gosh.
Man, you were wise beyond your years, man. You're an old soul. That's wisdom right there. Use both hands to grab two more legs. I think that's smart.
That's
If you could sit on a bench on a gorgeous day and have a long conversation with anyone living or deceased, who do you want to be next to?
somebody that's been really, really interesting. It's a biblical person to me is the Apostle Paul. Would love to sit down with that apostle and see what he would do today in light of the great missionary moment we live in.
He'd be going somewhere. He'd be moving, man. All right, so son, back to you for a minute.
I love
What's
those questions. Love those questions.
Well, we're not through yet. You may not love the next one.
You're ready.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
My grandpa right here, he has given a lot. He has helped us with the book a lot. He has helped me a lot through hard times.
Mm.
And I don't know one specific thing that it can come up to my mind right now. Probably will later, but he's probably told me one of the most important wisdom things anyone has ever told me. My grandma and grandpa, his mom and dad.
That's so good. I love it. I love the fact you don't have an answer with words, but actions. That's awesome. So, Dad, what advice would you give yourself at age 20? What wisdom does that 20-year-old punk need to hear?
As you grow older, know that everything will work out.
Hmm.
And believe that as you're working towards where you are, don't worry and believe and trust the Lord.
Jameson Jr., my friend,
Yes, sir.
it has been said, this is the final question, that all great people can have their lives summed up in one sentence. How do you want your one sentence to read?
I hope that people will say that I'm glad that I met Jameson and he's given me that wisdom for me to live for the Lord.
What an awesome answer. Jameson Jr. and Dad, who raised him well, and Mary, who's somewhere probably just working, doing the thing. I want to thank you all for living this, for writing this, and for sharing this with our community.
You're so welcome, John. Honored to be with you. Thank you for all that you're doing and excited to get to know you more, man.
My friends, you're listening to the story, the father-son power duo of Jameson and Jameson. Their last name is Reeder. They are the co-authors of the book Rescue at the Reef. It's the miraculous true story of a little boy with big faith. My name is John O'Leary, and today is our day. What a gift. Live inspired and face the shark.